Welcome back. Thank you for staying tuned. This is our first conversation for this morning. It's an important topic, climate change, and we have folks from the National Climate Change Office joining us to talk about climate change, the Climate Week 2025, but more so about the important work they're doing to ensure secure our future here in Belize. And so we have joining us on set Ms. Edalme Pinello, who's the Chief Climate Change Officer over at NCCO, as well as Sumit Bentacourt, who's Deputy Chief Climate Change Officer, Ms. Camille Salazar, who's Monitoring, Reporting, and Verification Officer, as well as Mr. Christopher Tapia, Climate Finance Officer. Good morning.
Good morning.
It's a pleasure having you all. Full house this morning.
Yes.
I'm sure everybody plays an important role over there at the office. Let's start with you, Chief. Speak a bit, if you would, about what you all do over there at the National Climate Change Office and your mandate. Why is your work important?
So good morning again, and thank you for having us.
Of course.
So let me backtrack when it comes to why the office was created. In 2012, we had the country has faced intensified hurricanes, unpredictable rainfalls, and also unpredictable floods. So the government of Belize decided to have a temporary office which was created, and that was called the National Climate Change Office. But in 2015, the climate crisis intensified, hence the reason the cabinet decided to adopt a national climate change policy and action plan, which is our framework in guidance with any climate change related issues. When it comes to our mandate, we got three principles. Our three principles is communicate, coordinate, and mainstream any climate change related. So we are also the UNFCCC, the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change focal point, which is we are responsible to develop and report international documents. For example, the National Determined Contribution, or a Biennial Transparency Report, and also our greenhouse gas inventory documents. So we are in charge to collect data, also to coordinate with ministries. So our work also entails to have that discussion with key stakeholders, which we have 5 of them, that my colleague will also reflect on when it comes to our main submission for this year was the National Determined Contribution 3.0. So that's the overall mandate that we host.
When you speak about mainstreaming, speak a bit about how you all do that to ensure that the involvement in tackling this issue is across sectors or widespread.
So it's not just across sectors, and it's also with our private and communities. We have a layer when it comes to the different stakeholders. It comes from having the sectoral approach and also the private sector approach, because climate change is for all. We have to tackle it as a holistic approach, and that also includes our communities, which includes our indigenous communities as well.
Let me just follow up quickly, because climate change has become such a buzzword that oftentimes those who are heavily critical of the term or of the issue at large describes it as a pie in the sky issue. As individuals who are sounding the alarm about the sky is falling, when according to the critics that's not the case. How do you tackle that narrative or counter that narrative, if you would?
So I think the way that we have take the approach is our data collection. That reflects a lot on how our temperature has changed drastically from the 90s to the 20s. So one of the main things that we have here is that without data, how can we echo and voice our own concerns internationally and nationally? And the way that we have been doing it is also educating our children and our youths.
So the data is showing the facts.
Yes, facts.
And the facts are that this is real.
This is real. Climate change is here. We have inherited, even though we are not emitters, but we need to adapt to it.
Yeah.
I want to echo what Paul was mentioning about climate change being a buzzword. I remember when Belize initially started making its presence at these conferences, it was kind of like, what are we doing there? You know, it wasn't really seen as something serious, and now it's like, it's difficult to not mention climate change when there's any type of natural disasters. You spoke about the collaboration with other entities and even the private sector. I want to talk about how the data collection is streamlined into these other agencies, like the National Meteorological Service, the Hydrology Unit, and how it all coincides and sends this bigger picture to provide support to Belize as a country and, of course, a people.
So when it comes to having that collaboration with our government partners, we have worked very closely. Without their collaborations, I think we'll not be having no international documents prepared. And also because I feel that it's a holistic approach, meaning that without them and without our expertise, we can move forward.
Yeah.
Tackling climate change or tackling climate crisis.
All right, let's bring Mr. Summit into the conversation. Share a bit about the work you do and your input into this conversation.
Yeah, certainly, Paul. You know, the chief mentioned a critical piece of policy that Belize has, our national determined contribution, and this is really Belize's action plan that outlines and says, hey, this is how Belize is addressing climate change and climate change impacts. And as you rightfully said, I mean, it's a whole of system approach, and that's what this action plan is about. So it outlines specific targets and action, mitigation actions, so saying this is how we plan to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions, but it also outlines adaptation actions where we're receiving impacts from climate change now, increased droughts, increased severity and intensity of storms. So we also have to adapt to these impacts. So what are we doing? Improving infrastructure, you know, utilizing nature-based actions, coastline retention, utilizing mangroves. So the NDC is really a whole of system approach. We have targets within the energy sector. For instance, so what are we going to do? Transitioning to more renewable energy. You saw recently the major renewable project that's being funded, increasing our solar power sources. No? Similarly, in the agriculture sector, how are we addressing more intense droughts and more frequent droughts? So utilizing climate smart agriculture practices. Similarly, in the waste sector, how are we managing our waste? We're seeing that that's becoming more and more of a big issue. So improving our infrastructure for that as well. So our NDC really outlines Belize's 5 to 10 year approach as to how we are going to address these issues in that term, no? But it also comes with a cost,
Yeah.
right? And that cost, I think we're estimating at about $1.5 to $1.8 billion. So where is that coming from?
Yes.
Right, the chief mentioned that Belize isn't a contributor to climate change, but we receive some of the most significant impacts. So where does this finance come from? This is where we depend on external support, whether it be financial support, capacity building, technology transfer, or technical support. Right, and while we're doing things nationally from our resources, we also depend on grants, highly concessional loans, and bilateral partnerships. So this NDC is really Belize's response to these challenges, and what Climate Week wants to do is sensitize the public about this, invite the key stakeholders that are getting the work done. As the chief mentioned, we're collaborating with ministries, non-government organizations, civil society, and communities, you know. So this NDC will really, through implementation, drive real impact on the ground. And that's what we want to highlight.
I think that's important because what you've highlighted there is the fact that this policy speaks to sectors across the country. And I'm wondering how well these sectors have received this policy and the plans outlined within these policies. And I understand Climate Week is a part of the sensitization process. However, are we seeing an uptick in these different sectors taking on these approaches and these adaptation approaches to the way they do their work and the way they move forward. They're moving forward.
Especially when it can come as a cost to them.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, certainly, and I like that you brought that up because it's actually not a top-down approach, but a bottom-up approach. So
Tell me about it.
when we interact with the sectors, they tell us what it is that they're doing and what they need to do and the impacts that they're feeling and what appropriate targets and actions are necessary from their end. So this NDC really is about ownership as well, right? If you have a stakeholder owning these targets and actions, then it easier translates to implementation and greater impact. So we work, as the Chief mentioned, collaboratively with other ministries who inform us and the key stakeholders, communities, the NGOs and others within each of the sectors tell us like, look, these are the impacts, these are some of the things that we need, and based on that we work together to really establish these targets because we want it to be something that's achievable and implementable. So it's really a bottom-up approach and not the other way around. So that's really how we work with along with our key people.
Well, we know Climate Change Week is one of the bigger initiatives that we look forward to have the public be sensitized. And I don't think there's ever enough of a conversation to have about climate change and its impacts. We have Camille here with us to talk about what that initiative will look like this year. Let's talk about that.
Sure. So first of all, I'd like to mention that this is the 4th time that we're doing it. It's the biggest. It will be held in Belize City on August 25th to the 29th at the Caribbean Motors showroom. It'll be set up around with a fair style with different booths, and we're collaborating with many entities. So we have different organizations joining us. They'll be having booths there. We'll start off with an official opening ceremony, and we're delighted to share that we'll have the Prime Minister there to open the event for us. And I think one of the other important things to mention about this event, and even the past ones that we've done, is that we make it a point to involve everyone, especially the youths. And so we'll have them engaged. Actually, right now we have like an 501 Academy happening, and I think yesterday actually they were at the office, and we have a painting in our office from the previous Climate Week, and many of the youths had signed it, and I overheard them looking at it, and some of them are the same youths that had been involved, and some of them recognized some of their other friends that were involved. So I think that was a really great thing to hear, and to hear them be excited about this event. So we'll have them there, and we're trying our best to keep it as interactive as possible to keep them involved in the process. We'll have a climate change trivia as well for the youths on the first day, and then each day breaks off into a different theme related to adaptation and resilience. So we'll have the forest sector, the agriculture, energy and biodiversity, and then even how we get the involvement of vulnerable groups in the policy making that we do and the decision making that we do. So we'll have indigenous groups, women and the voices of youth involved as well. And we're also inviting eco vendors. So we'll have booths from different organizations that are implementing different actions, but we're opening it up to vendors that may want to. We have a lot of local businesses here in Belize, so we're opening up to them. If they want to join and have a booth, they're able to sign up, and it's actually for free as well, and we'll have them there. So that's basically the first 4 days of the event. It's open to the public, so feel free to stop by. And then all of this it closes off on that 4th day, and then we have a Climate Finance Forum that's happening on day 5, which I'll ask Mr. Tapia to speak on a bit.
Yes, because when we're talking climate finance, or when we're talking climate change, it does come with talks of finance. So let's discuss the forum that's about to take place.
For sure, no problem. And just to add a little bit of context, between 2015 and 2019, most of our climate financing came from loans. It was over 50% of loans for climate financing. And you know, as a small island developing state, that's very unsustainable that we're getting these loans at a very high percentage rate, loan rate, interest rate. And so the government found it necessary that we need to shift gears. And so one way of doing that was we established a climate finance unit, which I'm a part of, to try to access these concessional loans, these grants. And so while the NCCO works on the strategy and policy of what we need to do to reach our goals, we at the Climate Finance Unit, we try to find those financing to make those goals become reality. And so working together collaboratively, we work together very closely on the Climate Finance Forum, which will be able to bring together multiple stakeholders internationally, which is our development partners, our diplomatic missions, and even our local entities here, whether it's civil society organizations, sectors that are involved, like, for example, the sugar industry, the agriculture industry, the transport and energy industry, to come together, and so we can have this discussion on what we need to do, how to access these financings, and how we can build the capacity to make sure that, you know, everyone involved can follow these can follow the trajectory that we need, because we need to align our climate change priorities with the financing that we need.
You know, how much that's a big question, but how much financing is available out there to tackle these issues, and how much of accessing these finances is about visibility, making yourself visible, and having an action plan to present as well?
Yes, for sure, and that's why the NDCs that the NCCO works on very close, very well, with different partners in the NDC partnership, that they create the strategy. As well, we have our own medium-term strategy plan in our Ministry of Economic Transformation. And so, like you mentioned very well, is that we need to have that visibility, and so this comes with, you know, us going to the COPs, attending these international forums, that, you know, we need to put Belize on the spotlight, because yes, we need a lot of financing. For example, I think one of our gap assessment was that I think Belize needs $1.6 billion to meet its target. And so it's a lot of money. So we need to be out there. We need to continue showing ourselves and continue to asking for more of these financing, especially when it comes to grants and concessional loans, because that's the only way that we can do it sustainably.
So who attends a forum like the one that would be taking place on the Friday?
So those, it's going to be ministries. It's going to be, like I mentioned, the development partners. So we have the Green Climate Fund, we have the World Bank Group, CABE. We also have, like I mentioned, the sugar industry, and as well we have, I think we just recently got confirmation that I think the Maya Leaders Association will be attending as well. So it's not only about, you know, business as well, but NGOs and different people that can come together and try to move Belize further with its goals.
Isn't it a bit ironic, though, that we have to go out and technically seek finances, in some cases beg for money to address an issue
that we didn't cause?
that we didn't necessarily cause or put on ourselves? I think there's a bit of irony there, that we have to do that and take on these financial burdens as a result, wouldn't you say, Chief?
And sometimes beg from the same countries that are emitting it.
Yes, for me, I think I take it a different approach.
Tell
I
me.
think it's our responsibility as a country, as an individual, to also fight for our needs. And it's critical for us to fight it now, because climate change is here. It's not in the future like we tend to predict. We feel it every day. So as an office, it's our responsibility also to assist when it comes to the implementation phase. Because yes, we have submitted a document, and yes, we have target and actions, but I think the critical point is to implement it. So for us right now as the office, we are also preparing our implementation plan for the NDC to also estimate when it comes to the different sectors activities, how much it will cost. And also that will guide the climate finance unit on which areas we need to focus more when it comes to accessing funding, and also to reduce loans, because that's what we are
of course
moving away from.
How do you decide which area is priority to invest in at this point, and then another area later on, another sector later on? Is there a decision-making
So
process?
I think
that goes in
we,
there?
when it comes to what are the top priorities, we align ourselves with Plan Belize, and we can also see that we have this similarity top priorities, which are energy, agriculture. So it's just a way how to do it and to estimate the time, because we have our NDCs, which is 5 years and 10 years. So one of the top priorities I can see from the Plan Belize is energy, which is with solar panels, wind, and also with the transition to e-vehicles.
What happens when 2030 comes and we're still not able to be or meet some of these targets that was initially outlined in the Sustainable Development Goals?
Be hopeful, Sabrina.
I mean, we're 5 years away and we're trying to get to $1.6 billion.
So one of the things that we learned from our NDC 2.0 is that we will not make consultants build it. So it was a really homemade, real approach, very ambitious, as we can see, because it's a combination from what we didn't meet in our NDC 2.0 with the combination from updating the NDC 3.0. And yes, we have a challenge when it comes to financial support, but let me state that the government has made many initiatives when it comes to different targets that are not really, it's really hosted by our ministers itself that they say we need to make this a list, I can see, towards our target. So when it comes to having that set and having the different support, it's very different than before. We are not working in silos this time. We are working within the ministries and we have a goal. So I feel that once we have this and we plan year by year, and that's why it's very critical for us to have the implementation plan ready, and we will have it ready by November.
Excellent. All right, so Climate Week set for August 25th to the 28th.
29th.
The 29th. And those who attend can engage you all and continue these types of discussions, correct? And I must commend the office for having what appears to be a very young and dynamic professional team. It seems as if you're building this initiative on young people as well, young professionals.
We have to, I think that's one of our main missions within the ministries, that we realize that once we prepare our future, which is our youths and our children, we will be good. Even though we have this issue having now and the future, but once we have it coordinated and established. So I think it's key. And before we turn off, to our next segment, I want to say, without the support from our sponsors, which is key, without them as well, we can have a fourth Climate Week.
Yes.
All right. Well, before we take a break, we do want to include you guys in our motivational quote or motivational moment this morning. And that quote goes like this: setting goals is the first step in turning the invisible into visible. And that comes from Tony Robbins. Quite an interesting one.
Yes.
Well, thank you guys so much for joining us, and we wish you guys all the best.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
We take a quick break now, but don't go anywhere. When we come back, the conversation switches into shopping smart with Full Text Back to School Sale.